Now, I don't know if it's a sign of getting older or not, but Christmas seems to come and go really, really quickly these days. And again, we find ourselves right at the end of another year. And the end of the year also marks the end of my first full season with this vegetable garden. And what a first season it has been, from the flowers to the vegetables to the friendships that I've formed along the way. Wow! Wow! I've picked my first ever melon! You cannot put a price on the joy that growing your own food brings you. I'm almost speechless. Wow! So what better way to mark the end of the year by having a final plot tour of 2024? And what better place to start that plot tour than here in the polytunnel, because I haven't shown you in here for quite some time now. Starting off on the north side of the polytunnel, the purple lily and long white ishikura spring onions are doing okay. They are putting on a bit of growth. We have some winter density lettuce next to those, and then moving along we have purple sprouting broccoli that is interplanted with some little gem lettuces. And I'm really pleased with how these purple sprouting broccolis are doing. I mean, look at them, they are doing really well. And then right at the back of the tunnel we do have our little selection of oriental mustards. Moving on to the centre bed, we have our first signs that all is not well in the polytunnel with how damp the atmosphere is in here, because you can see right at the front of the bed here that a lot of the violas are really succumbing to this dampness. This bed here is full of spring cabbages and cauliflowers, and the crops themselves are looking okay really, aren't they? Quite pleased with those. And at the end of the centre bed here I have two little tubs of carrots, although I've just turned round and I have to say I think I might be expecting a bit too much out of these tubs this year. They're not looking very healthy at all, are they? But there's a few that don't look quite so bad in this tub, so all is hopefully not lost. And on the south side of the polytunnel we have more oriental mustards this side. A few spring cabbages there, I'm really happy with those. And then these are the Savoy cabbages that were planted underneath the tomatoes, and I have to say, I'm really rather happy with those. Looking quite healthy, aren't they? Oh, although there's a dead leaf there, just pick that up. We have more overwintering lettuces here. This variety is winter density. And behind the winter density and the Savoy cabbages is where we move into the area that it seems to be most affected. And that is these red salad bowl lettuces. We're getting quite a bit of mould on those. So I've not been picking them because the leaves are going mouldy. So a few of them need removing today. So I'm going to replace those with some other spares that I have in the greenhouse. And we're just going to have to monitor them and just hope that the weather lifts and we get some nice drafts blowing through here shortly. Because as you can see, the tops of this lettuce leaf are quite mouldy. And a bit slushy, look. Not nice. It's a similar story with some of the other ones here. And then we do have the ultimate casualty here. I mean, that one is beyond any hope, isn't it? So I'm going to have to remove that one, and I will replace that with something else. Now, it's no big deal to be having to replace the odd plant in here. This is why I have spares in the greenhouse. So I have my spare winter density here, and I have some rocket here which hasn't even made it out. So there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom end of the centre bed where I did have a marigold planted earlier in the year. So I'm going to put some rocket in the end of there as well. Now I also have a new set of tools to use for this job. And you might think that these were a Christmas present, but they weren't, because I've actually been placed third in Kitchen Garden Magazine's top plotter of the year. Third, me! Absolutely blown away with that, and these are one of the prizes. And if you subscribe to Kitchen Garden Magazines, I'll be in the March issue, released at the end of February. But let's get on to planting. It's not going to take much to take this one up, is it? Oh dear. They've been waiting for their moment. that's everything that I've got growing in the polytunnel at the moment. It is looking quite a packed house in here, isn't it? I have to say, I've not watered in here for probably about a month now. That's how damp the ground and the air has been. It's just not needed watering. So let's hope for some nice, bright, sunny, wintry days coming soon. Moving outside of the polytunnel, these first two beds here are my brassica beds. This bed was planted a lot earlier than this bed here, and these are doing really quite well. They've put on quite a significant amount of growth. I'm really pleased with them. The ones in this bed here don't look quite so happy. Not only were they planted out later, they've had a bit of a shock really, because I planted these out right before we had all of the storms and the incessant amount of rain as well. So they've kind of been a bit battered before they've managed to get some roots in the ground, but they're holding their own, so hopefully they will soon catch up. There's nothing in the two beds next to those brassica beds. They have been manured ready for spring. Moving back a bit though, I'm really pleased to see that the phacelia bed is doing well. We've gone past the cotyledon stage now, and it's a proper blanket of green in this bed. It looks amazing. It's not quite the same in the garlic bed though next to it. You can see at the end of the bed that we have the germador that came up well before Christmas, but the rest of the bed had been looking rather worryingly empty. However, I'm happy to report that a few more are now starting to come up, and I can see some little baby garlic shoots. So hopefully in another month we will start to see quite a bit of greenery in the garlic bed, because I can't lie, I've been getting a little bit concerned why it was taking them so long to come up, because you know they've been in the ground there now for about 8 weeks. It was right at the beginning of November that I planted them. There's still a few swede left in the bed next to the garlic, but I'm thinking that now Christmas is over and I've got a little bit more space in the freezer, I'm going to pick all of those within the next few days and just get them processed and put in the freezer and just get them out of the ground and safe from the slugs doing any damage to them. The bed the other side of the archway does still have a little bit of cosmos standing here. Obviously I've left them for these hollow stems for insects to hibernate in, but when you look at all the mould that's forming on the stems, I'm not sure whether I really should be removing them. I'm not experienced enough to know whether that mould that's in there is likely to spread to any more of my plants that I am intending to overwinter. So could you do with a little bit of advice on that one, please, if you've got any for me? Now you can tell just looking at the rest of the bed that the ground here is very wet, so it's no surprise that no more of the broad beans that I've planted have come up. These are the Aquadulture Claudia, and to be honest, I'm not that bothered that no more have germinated, because I do have some of the crimson flower broad beans that are to be planted in spring, so I can sow those and put those in the rest of the bed later on in the year. And then the only other thing at the top of these main beds here are my leeks, overwintering leeks, and they're growing on, they're doing okay. You saw me harvest them for Christmas last week. I have harvested all of the red cabbage in the bed here next to me, but the reason the cover is still on there is I'm looking for a nice dry day to really dry that mesh so I can take it off and fold it and put it away. I don't want to be folding up wet mesh to store. One of the jobs that I need to do, and I can do that as part of this plot tour, is to remove all of these asparagus ferns that I dropped on top of the asparagus. Now, I thought I was doing a really good thing when I did this. I thought it was genius when I did this to protect them when that snow came. And it was okay as a temporary measure, but it has since been pointed out to me, and thank you very much for that, that actually I'm increasing my risk of asparagus beetle by leaving the fronds on top. Well, there's only 6 crowns in here that go down 2 sides of the bed. So to rectify what I've done, just in the middle, put a little bit of muck, just to hope that the worms will take that down into the roots to help feed them, but I'm not going to be putting it on top of the actual crowns. And then I want to put some actual compost on to mulch them, because I'm a little bit concerned by the fact that we have some spears coming up already. I don't think that should be happening just yet, do you? I don't want to damage the spears that are just starting to pop their little heads up. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. hopefully I've corrected that mistake in time. I'm quite pleased to get that job done. It has been playing on my mind, I must admit. And the only thing in the bed behind me here is this solitary purple globe artichoke, which so far seems to be surviving winter, and hopefully it's going to give us a bit of a show next spring and early summer. But the most exciting thing down this end of the vegetable garden is actually in this bed here, because this is the ochre bed, and I have been really looking forward to harvesting this all year, and it's finally time. So the final harvest of 2024, it needs to be given to the ochre. Now I have a series of red and white ochres, and bizarrely the white ochres had the red foliage and the red ochres had the white foliage. So let's just have a little dig about and see what's what. Can I pull it? Oh. Well, there's lots of teeny tiny ones, but there's a few better ones. I think they probably should be a bit bigger than that, but it's a harvest nonetheless. Wow. I think I set these ochre up to fail slightly this year because I planted them in pots first. So I didn't actually plant them very deeply in the ground because the foliage was already above the surface. I think they needed to be planted much deeper than this. But we do still have some, and they will definitely be good for seed next year. Let's have a look under here as well. Oh, now look at the size of that. I actually think that's probably what they should all look like. Something to strive for next year. That is definitely a bit more impressive, isn't it? Oh, there's another slightly bigger one there. They're all mixed up now. I'm pleased with those ones. Oh, they're a bit dirty because it's so wet. But there's some more. Oh, I'm getting a bit more excited now. Oh. Now I only had 8 and my seed tubers weren't much bigger than these little ones anyway, so I'm quite pleased with that. There's some very, very tiny ones. I think I need to research more how I give these a better environment to grow in. But the white one, look at the size of that one. That one's good. There's another one there. Oh, they're so deep. I suspect that these will be something that will keep growing year on year because it's going to be impossible to get them all out. And obviously I don't want to damage any, so I'm a bit reluctant to put the fork in the ground. Wow. Now, I'm not sure that I really need any more, but I will just have one last look here. They're fascinating. The shape of them. Oh, so pleased to have all of these that will be perfect seed ochre to grow again next year. I think it's fair to say that ochre is not my most successful harvest of 2024. You know, some of them aren't a bad size, but I do have lots of tiny, tiny ones in here that I'm not even sure if they're big enough to use for seed for next year. But, you know, it's a first time growing something and it's all part of the learning experience, isn't it? So hopefully next year I can have more of them this size. Let's get back to the plot tour. Next along we have the brassica tunnel. Every time this shows in a video I get quite a few comments about it, so it is linked in the description. If you're going to put one of these up though, I do recommend that you put stakes in either side of it so you have somewhere to tie the guide ropes to. We did stick this piece of wood in the ground, and not only do I have the guide ropes tied to it, Duncan also made a little bit of a bracket so that I could put it underneath the fiberglass hoop and fasten it that way. It was quite windy the other day and it was blowing this way, so it seems to have knocked quite a lot of these plants over in here, but I'm not too concerned about that because as soon as these are finished then this brassica tunnel is actually coming out because I have big plans for this area. This space here is earmarked for a fruit cage extension. The fruit cage is currently 4 meters by 4 meters and I've bought another half kit for it, so if you imagine another half of that is going to fit just in that area right on the edge of the path, which is why that tunnel has to go. And the main reason for this plan is because I need a bigger strawberry bed. I need to be able to spread them out, put a much bigger bed in the middle, and I would like more blueberries and potentially a few more autumn raspberry canes as well. There's a huge tradition to sow onions on Boxing Day, and you know, I wasn't going to do it this year, but I do have 2 packets of rather big onions. So I have Mammoth Improved and I also have Red Mammoth. And whilst I wasn't going to sow any onions this early in the season, why not? I've got the packets already. Now, one thing to note is that these will not be germinating outside. I will be taking them in the house. I'm just sowing them out here for your benefit. So these ones are the Mammoth Improved. Now this tray is one of the Container-Wise 77 deep cell trays here. And all I'm going to do is put 1, if I can, onion seed in each cell. If I get more than 1 coming up, I will just thin them out. So that's 5 rows of those. Now I've got to try and get these back in the packet. And then on these rows, put the red ones. And all I need to do is just top them up now with a bit more compost. And then I'm going to take them in the house. Now, I'm not going to put these on a heat pad because they only need a temperature above 13 degrees to germinate, and it is warmer than that in our house anyway. Now, a couple of weeks after they've germinated, they will probably come back outside. Otherwise, it will in fact get too hot for them indoors and they will go quite leggy. So, Boxing Day onions, a day late, tick. In my recent video about this building, which I called the summer kitchen, which I now know should be just called a Victorian washroom. So from now on, that's what this place is going to be called. In that video, I had a lot of comments about this wash copper and how you would go about cleaning it. So a lot of suggestions were to take it out and take it somewhere to have it treated, but you can't get them out. The only way to get this out would be to dismantle the fireplace. They're built into the fireplace. And obviously I want to keep the fireplace as original as possible, so I'm not prepared to try and take it out. And apparently a lot of them do end up getting broken in the attempts to sort of deconstruct the fireplace from around them. So I don't have any of the lotions and potions that have been suggested at the moment, but what I'd like to do first is to try something really, really simple just to see if any of this rust will lift in terms of, is it just surface rust? So what we do have here on the farm is a welding brush, so a steel wire wool welding brush with a bit of a scraper on the end of it. And I thought, well, isn't that the first place to start really? So let's have a look and see how deep this rust goes. Turn the light on the camera to hopefully give you a better look, but if I just sort of scrape down here, one of the questions I got frequently asked was whether it had previously been enamelled. And when I look at this edge here, which looks fairly undamaged by rust, I don't see any evidence that it's been painted. It does just look like cast iron. Looking here in the bottom of it, I don't see any evidence of any holes either. Now, working on here is definitely something that I should be doing wearing a mask, and it's not something really for a plot tour video, but I couldn't resist having a little look at it after all of the comments that I'd had over Christmas about it. And do you know what? I can see signs that actually it's probably in a lot better condition than I gave it credit for. And hopefully we will get this wash copper restored. But that's it for now. I'll catch you in the next video. Look after yourselves. Bye.